Hello and welcome to the BA News Show, your weekly news show every Friday at 5. Tell your friends. So what have we got on today's news show? Well, we have got a little piece about the terrible news about E3. We've got a bit about a very exciting story for me, Command & Conquer Remastered, and then a little bit of information about possibly the growth of the games industry. But before we plough headlong into that, Tabz, what have you been playing this week?
It's another one. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I've not strictly played any games this week. As the BArcadians will know, I've actually moved this past weekend, which is why you can see a slightly different setup here in my different era chair. No longer the Chesterfield. This is more of a kind of a 70s hipster chair, I would say. But yeah, in terms of game coverage, no, not played on any strictly. I did watch a review of Skill Up though, of the new Ori, what would you call it? Not DLC, well, I suppose it is DLC, isn't it? It's come out with an expansion pack for Ori. Is it the Will o' the Wisps or something like that?
I mean, where do they come up with these names?
Let me find this for you live, just so we know for sure. Ori and the Will o' the Wisps. I was right the first time. So yes, saw a review of that from Skill Up, was very complimentary about it, has some technical issues, but just singing the praises of it generally. And as you might remember, a couple of weeks back, I've actually bought The Blind Forest, the original Ori. I'm still waiting to play that, so that could be something I touch base with any day now and have something to share. But what about you, Rich? What have you been up to?
So, a bit more Gran Turismo for me this week. Had another victory at the weekend, which was pleasing. They're few and far between with me.
You needed one, didn't you, after that workout video?
I did, yes. If you haven't seen that, BArcadians, definitely go and check that out. It's a good fun video. Tabz puts it all on the line. Baby makers and all. Quote for you there.
Do apologise, BArcadians, for some of my vulgar language in that video. Certainly, I was compromised, and hopefully you can understand that. Moving on.
But apart from that, not been playing a great deal this week. Just been quite busy this week. Just trying to avoid mainly. Anyway, let's move headlong into the news. So we're going to start.
You just killed our video, Rich. Not that it gets that many views anyway, but mention of this apparently bombs the YouTube algorithm. So BArcadians, especially more so, please like the video. And please make sure you subscribe to the channel to grow and support.
So, in equally terrible news and linked to that story, it comes out this week that unfortunately E3 has been cancelled for 2020. Now, as you may well know, we were umming and ahhing about going to E3 earlier on in the year. In fact, we almost booked the flights to go then. We probably would have booked the flights had it not been for the fact my passport was out of date. And while waiting for that passport to arrive in the post, PlayStation decided to pull out, which sort of put a nail in a coffin to our plans to go to E3. But alas, E3 is not happening at all now. Mainly due to this ongoing health crisis that we've got going throughout the world with this new pandemic, as it's now been called. And the industry, the people who organise it have basically said that the health and safety of everyone in the industry is the most important thing, which I guess in the circumstances you should say is probably for the best.
And apparently they're exploring options for an online alternative to E3, still happening sometime in June. So that'll be interesting. We're going to see basically an E3 Direct, are we? Essentially.
And I think that's really interesting because I think we've mentioned a few times on the channel that E3 as a conference where everyone goes and meets up and stuff possibly is a dying art with the accessibility that's available nowadays. Well, have we seen in last year's the last proper E3 we will ever see? Is this forcing the makers or the organisers of E3 into this electronics version of the show, and from that possibly they'll decide actually that worked really well?
I think, yeah, and I think there's also been a bit of a boycott, hasn't there, from big players in the industry. We know Jeff Keighley pulled out of the show, citing reasons that, he just couldn't get on board with the direction it was going in. And I think there's pressure there. I think they really want to shake up the format. So yeah, it seems like the death knell is ringing out for E3. However, I would not rule out, if the organisers actually respond to these calls from big games industry influencers, and they do rejig the format, perhaps we stop seeing this chaotic formula of inviting loads of the public who have to wait in queues, barely getting a look in. Some of the shambles we've seen of recent E3 with the big leak of journalist details and whatnot. If there's a shake-up and they can actually make it more of a viable format for everybody and perhaps cost a bit less, I'd still love to see it come back. And I still want to have hope, Rich, that one day we might find ourselves at a spectacular E3.
Yes, and one of us long ago put going to E3 on their bucket list. So it's a thing that we do hold dear. Hopefully, we haven't missed our shot in our lifetime to go there. But in slightly more positive news, things that are yet to be cancelled as of this video. The BAFTA Game Awards are still going on the 2nd of April in London. We're hoping that still goes ahead, because more than anything, we want to see Kojima get his big day out. Is that the Worldwide Developers Conference, Tabz?
I don't actually know what it stands for. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
from the
on
3rd
the
to 7th
3rd to 7th of June in California. That, as we stand, is currently on. And NAB, the annual Broadcaster and Media Trade Show, on the 18th to 22nd of April in Las Vegas, is also still on. But
as of this date,
yeah. I mean, it's a moving goalpost at all times. I don't know if I've mentioned before on the channel, I absolutely love the Formula One. Well, the first race of the season has officially been cancelled. Anyway.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, just a quick one, Rich. Friend of the channel, Raid, did mention to me in a message the other day about, Microsoft must be absolutely kicking themselves over this, because, it was basically going to be their show, wasn't it? With Sony pulling out and obviously Nintendo's reduced exposure to the show. Yeah. So, presumably they were hoping and banking on that as being a massive, spectacular fanfare for the next Xbox. And of course, this has come at a really disappointing time. So, yeah, how they're going to pivot to perhaps transcribe what their plans into an online format, we'll have to see. Maybe it's easier than what we think, but yeah, let us know what you think in the comments, BArcadians and Raid. Please let us know in more detail your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Also, unfortunately, we're not going to see some big things that we were hoping to see at E3 with the cancellation of the show. We were hoping to see a new Batman game, potentially a new Harry Potter game, which really interests me. I know that certainly interests the other half. And the next project by Rocksteady Studios, based on, again, news reports, shadows in the games industry. But according to Kotaku, in covering the event's cancellation, Warner Brothers was set to reveal the games as part of its E3, broadcast, whatever it was doing there. So it's sad. I do wonder how we're going to proceed now. Is this going to just be a stagnation for the next 6 months while we deal with this health crisis? Are we going to see this affect next-gen consoles and their release later on in the year?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it depends, doesn't it, how far along the developers are behind all these games in terms of their plans for reveals, for trailers, for footage, for demonstrations, whatever. You'd have to think that they'd be quite far along by now, and at least those developers who have planned well were still likely to see some trailers drop online around, E3 time. But at the end of the day, it's in everybody's interest, isn't it, to keep the world rolling, to keep the economy going, and to keep projections and deadlines as much as they can be kept. So I'd like to think we'll still see something, but it's certainly going to be a shadow of itself, isn't it? So
indeed,
wait and see on that one.
So, in other news this week, we had a 3-odd-minute trailer of the upcoming Command & Conquer Remastered. And those of you who know from me from the channel, BArcadians, will know that I am well into the Command & Conquer franchise. In fact, the original Command & Conquer is in my favourite games of all time. So what did we get from this latest drop of this news? Well, we got a release date, which is great. So they're looking at June the 5th for release on that, and it'll be released on Steam and Origin. And that will be the original Command & Conquer, which eventually got abbreviated to Tiberian Dawn, and the Command & Conquer Red Alert, the first one in the Red Alert series. Plus all of their expansion packs, some of which have not been seen on PC, so some of which were console exclusive, and we're now going to get them to see them on the PC, which is really nice to see. Graphics have had a significant overhaul and it's looking fantastic. One thing that I really like that they've included is with the click of a button, you can switch from the upgraded graphics to the old school graphics that we know and love from the original game. And I thought that's a nice little nod to the original there. What else? 4K support, the fresh look for the user interface, new controls. They're saying they've tweaked some of the AI, but have kept it mostly the same. A map editor, which we've not seen in those games, or at least their original iterations. The multiplayer has been completely reworked, and that looks like that'll work much more like an ordinary online multiplayer game. And the soundtrack has been remastered by the original person that made the soundtrack, so that is amazing. And I have to say, if you haven't heard it, go and check out the Command & Conquer soundtrack because it is amazing.
What's your favourite song again, Rich? Is it Mechanical Man? Is that your favourite?
I'm a Mechanical Man, yes. Check that out, BArcadians. Very, very good song. So, yes, very good. I would say my only... Well, I have mixed feelings about this anyway because I've recently played it, the originals on Windows 10. You do have to have a little bit of a workaround to make that work. But yeah, I've played the originals recently, so I'm hyped for this, but I'm not uber hyped for it just because I've recently played it. I'd say I'm a little disappointed that they didn't manage to find the original videos or video captures of the FMV cutscenes. So unfortunately, all they've been able to do is upscale the videos, and they look better than they did. But if they'd have found them, the original tape recordings, I think that would have made it a real step up in quality. So yeah, I'm excited for this, and if anyone's interested in the game, there's a massive special edition that includes like models of some of the games, some of the game items. There's, I think, there's a small metal model of a mammoth tank. There's a USB drive that looks like a piece of Tiberium. So yeah, it's really cool.
Are you going to be getting that mammoth tank edition, Rich?
Well, I don't know how much. It's $150. That I don't know what that is. I've not. That was from a video I watched. I don't know how much that is in pounds. I'm guessing it's over 100 quid, maybe 125 quid. So yeah, I'm sort of like I really like the things that come with it. They would make really cool items to display, but I don't know.
You spent up on special editions this year, right?
Well, maybe
on the back of Death Stranding.
Well, there is that, yeah.
And we should tell the BArcadians you're putting a lot of thought and potentially money into a studio, aren't you, for your house, for the channel?
Yes, so I recently decided that we were going to do a little change around in the house and basically move my DIY tools sort of more into a sort of garage space rather than in the house. It is actually a shed, to be fair, which will mean that the upstairs, what we call the office, I can then utilise more as a studio or, so a gaming room sort of thing. So that's probably where eventually I'll be filming videos, and actually it means that all the knickknacks and gaming memorabilia bits and bobs that I've got all around the house can be congregated in one little display area. And as part of that, I've decided to start ticking my collection up a little bit with a few additions. This week I've bought quite a special piece which I'll be doing an unboxing for the channel. So watch out for that, BArcadians.
Indeed.
So Tabz, what's our final piece for this week?
More of a kind of an insight into the games industry at large, and this was published by Fortune Business Insights. Essentially, a prediction on the games industry as a market and what it's worth. So I think in this article it states that the market size stood at US dollars, $34 billion worth in 2019. But the global gaming consoles market size is expected to reach $51 billion by 2027. So obviously,
Wow.
doesn't take a genius to realise that is a lot of growth in that particular market
Absolutely.
sector. Which we can see, can't we? As gamers, we can generally see and feel it taking over. And it becoming more of a popular hobby and pastime, if you like. Now, this particular report from Fortune Business Insights, they point to the rising adoption of AR, augmented reality, and virtual reality, VR, in educational and entertainment applications, which will stimulate the healthy growth of the market. So it's interesting that they're really pointing towards that as the key driving force for all of this potential growth up to 2027. We're obviously looking at Half-Life Alyx in our headlights, which is potentially going to be the big killer app for VR, or at least it's being billed that way. So, yeah, what are your thoughts, Rich?
I mean, would that be a suggestion then that this analyst thinks that the introduction of next generation hardware is going to have a significant impact in the immersion of VR, and then hence the uptake of VR, and obviously the likes of games like Alyx coming more to VR, and obviously that growing the sector?
I would suggest I would hope there's more to it than that. I think they've probably got insight into what's going on behind the scenes, specifically as they mentioned in education. And perhaps there's been a lot of technology proposed to put into that particular environment and how it can be adapted across. Back in our day, Rich, we saw the introduction of whiteboards, electronic whiteboards and whatnot in science classes. And that seemed to become, prevalent, didn't it, across the colleges and that we frequented. So, yeah, I suppose it's that sort of thing. We're going to see a massive adoption and introduction into that particular part of sector of the world. And from there, I suppose it's a bit like the Wii, isn't it? When the Wii took off in a more casual audience, in a bigger, more popular demographic, well, it sold millions of consoles, didn't it, the Wii?
I think for me, the biggest problem with VR at the moment is it's too expensive. The sort of point of entry is colossal. I don't think that they're just really expensive. It's like having a second console. That's how expensive they are. So once that comes down a bit, I think it's going to take off in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they've just got to make it accessible for everybody, haven't they? And hopefully they're making inroads into that. And Alyx could be a big proving point for its viability in the market.
Absolutely.
So let's wait and see. Breaking news though, Rich, just before we finish off.
I don't
know if you saw that Super Mario, Lego have crossed over with Nintendo, and specifically, it's saying here in this article in Engadget, because I don't know anything about this, I'm going to read it out live. It puts Super Mario Maker in the real world.
Yes, it does. I've had a brief look at this during the day today, and it looks as if you can basically make like a Lego course for you to take this sort of electronic Mario that sort of interacts with things as you move it along, and it seems like you can gather coins and stuff with it. Looks like a really cool idea. I think that's a really cool tie-in. I'd like to see more Nintendo Lego tie-in. Two of my favourite things. I think it could be very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it says here neither a video game nor a traditional Lego brick-based set. So they're kind of a board gamey Lego set, but with some creative scope there.
With like an electronic, I would say a little bit like with an electronic like character that you move around, and it interacts with its little interface with the things that it's moving past.
Well, it sounds very interesting. Nintendo, as ever, innovating truly, madly, deeply, as we know they like to. So I'm interested. I mean, just as a collector, that would be a cool little thing to get my hands on. But let us know what you think, Barcadians, to all of the topics discussed today. And I think that probably rounds us off, does it, Rich?
Absolutely. So if you liked the video, definitely give us a like. It really does help tie us in with YouTube's algorithms. And if you're not a Barcadian, become a Barcadian today and subscribe down below. And I think that's all we've got time for. Another one for the archive.
Stamped and completed.